All right, so in this video, I'm going to talk about Shintoism in terms of its founding story, how it came to be, and some foundational concepts of it. So, Shintoism is primarily practiced in Japan. In 1868, the official Shinto state was established, and then in 1946 is when Shintoism is recognized as an official religion in Japan. So I would say Shintoism is a religion and practice that is predominantly believed and embodied in Japan. And Shintoism coexists with Buddhism and Confucianism. So Buddhism helps people think about suffering and death, whereas Confucianism provides foundational kind of ethical codes of conduct for people to embody. Shintoism comes from Shinto, and Shin means gods or deities in Japanese, and To means the way. So Shinto means the way of the gods. Shintoism is focused on kami, so it is the way of the kami, and kami is that which is beyond control. It's outside of the ordinary. It is awe-inspiring. And so kami can be a god, a spirit, a human, an animal, an object. So it's a very flexible kind of concept here within the Shinto religion. Shintoism is also based upon multiple texts, but the two that I'm focusing on here is the Kojiki, which was kind of established in 1712 CE, and the Nihongi. And so in the Kojiki, it talks about kind of a creation story between this divine couple, and they are credited with bringing the world out of its chaos and creating the Japanese islands. But there's a lot of kind of tumultuousness with the gods, and there's also themes of, the Japanese islands are created, which is coming from divinity, but there's also a focus on human imperial kind of authority being intertwined with these divine powers. And that can be quite dangerous, which I'll talk about more in the next video. There's also a lack of objective moral principles in the way we tend to think about it in many other religions, but that allows there to be perhaps more of a coexistence between Shintoism and other religions. And this is where Confucian ethical principles can come into play. There's also an importance of the feminine and fertility and purification. There's a distaste for contamination and defilement. There is no supreme God, so that's why there isn't kind of a clear ethical conduct here, because there's no God to create these notions of what's right or from what's wrong. So Japanese ethics tend to come from both Buddhism and Confucianism rather than Shintoism. And so Japan is viewed as the land of the kami. It is viewed as paradise on earth. It is connected to nature and the divine presence of nature. Humans are descendants of this divinity, and they have a duty to celebrate and adore the treasures of the kami. So through ritual, through shrines, through purification ceremonies. The main purpose of this divine kami couple, who is credited with bringing the world out of its chaos and creating the Japanese islands, is to fertilize the land and procreate, because in order for humans to exist, right, like people need to procreate. And at the same time, though, there is a fear of contamination and death, disease, blood, sickness, right? These are viewed as contaminating, while emphasizing the necessary purification on the other hand. And so contamination brings out impurity, whereas purification brings out divinity and helps people connect better to kami. Unfortunately, this fear of contamination has led to the plight of a class they're kind of viewed as the quote-unquote untouchables. This is a class that tends to live in poverty. They typically perform the grunt work or the dirty work of society. So they might work in like a slaughterhouse, and so that's viewed as dirty. And unfortunately, there was legalized social segregation. Now it's illegal, but there still is social segregation. It's just not like formal social segregation. There's ostracism against this class. So it is really sad, and I think it's important to mention that. On the other hand, there is a worship of nature, like I mentioned before. So the sun, for example, is a highly revered object in the sky. It is viewed as female, which is a nice contrast to the patriarchal society in Japan, which was brought upon by Confucian ideals. The sun goddess is a feminine figure, and because of the importance of kind of female gods in the Shinto religion, imperial rulers at a time could be women. So that's kind of a unique aspect of this religion too. They have shamans, and shamanic figures tended to be female and women. So they were dancing. They were viewed as princesses in whom dwells the spirit of Kami. So they were kind of like the spiritual segue to Kami. Another kind of important concept of Shintoism is that the imperial state and religion are intertwined. So you have this interconnection between Shinto and the state. So the worship of the emperor is related to Kami. And so this, I'll talk more about this in the next video, but it is interesting how this idea developed in different time periods of Shintoism, different historical contexts as well.